Yeah.
I think that's it.
Now I understand about the age thing.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, cheers, man.
Actually, you know what? Don't call me Pleasure P on beating kids. That's a bit fucked.
Today,
I'll just be P. Just
after
P.
P.
Well, actually,
Just P. Just
Did you work
P.
for the BBC by any chance?
What's up, people? Welcome back to the Short Back and Side show. This is episode 6. I'm here, the doc. We've got Millionaire Mike. We have got Trife. We got Mr. Blake. And we got Mr. P.
Renamed.
And today what we're going to talk about is beating your kids. Who wants to kick us off?
I can go.
Yeah, go on.
So, 2 boys. One is 8. One is 2.5. So I think before getting to what I think about how they need to be structured and disciplined, I think one of the things that's quite important when you ask that question is what was the structure at home when I was a child, when I was a kid.
Very good. Very good.
So it's interesting because I grew up with a stepdad as well.
Yeah.
So my dad wasn't there. My dad left when I was about 6 months old. So discipline really came from my mum. So yeah, I used to get lick. She would say not frequently, but in my mind, frequently. For a variety of reasons. And I think this is why I mentioned variety of reasons. So I don't know. And I'm sure as we go around the room, you guys will have your own experiences. But for me, sometimes I didn't really understand the reason why the beating took place.
Yeah.
It almost felt like it was a formality.
Yeah.
It was a habit. And I'm conscious she might be watching this, but we can have that discussion another day. One example that always stands out in my mind, I was about 5 years old. And one of my mates asked if he could come over to my house. I was like, oh, Mum, couldn't let my mate come over. And she was like, no, this is in the playground. I saw the no and I was like, oh, okay. That means something's going to pop up when I get home. So get home. Brush is chasing me around the room, trying to grab me with any object. I don't even know what the object was, right? And I was just thinking, in that instance, what did I do wrong? Now, as an adult now, I can think of about a million reasons why you wouldn't want to hear that question. But the key thing is hear the question.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything to be punished there. And that specific beating always stayed with me. Right? If I'm honest, it always stayed with me because that's the first time I questioned, why is this happening? I never questioned it before, maybe because of age or maybe because of I understood the reasons, like I'd broken something, or I'd done something mischievous. And then every beating I took after that, I actually questioned it. I was only about 5 and this went on. And then I remember one day, I was about maybe 7 or 8 and she was trying to lick me. And I just stood up and I laughed. That made her madder. That made her madder. And the object got heavier sort of thing. But I stood my ground. I was just like, no, because I don't fucking get why this is happening.
Yeah.
So talked about having a stepdad. So my stepdad, I have to be honest, never raised his hands to me, but always at times threatened me.
Yeah.
And because for me, my stepdad was a white man, half English, half Irish, or is a white man. It's not was. So it was a bit of the unknown for me. 'Cause I was like, my mom's black, my cousins, their parents are black, or whatever. I understood the culture, but I didn't understand. This is going to sound really bad. Looking at my white friends and stuff, because I went to a school that was mainly white kids.
Yeah.
They didn't talk about beating, so I was a bit confused as to why my white version in the house was threatening to hit me.
Yeah.
Anyway, he never did. I can't say he ever did. But fast forward in time, one time, I remember we had this disagreement about something. And he threatened me with it. And I was like, at this time, 17 or something. I was just like, we can go.
Go on and do so.
Yeah, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm not in that space anymore. Like, talk about it. And to be fair, nothing ever happened. But like with my mom, the continuous thing was always the same thing, and I didn't understand it. So fast forward to my kids now. So I've seen my eldest one push Rima to a point where she's reacting. She did. She gave me a little tap.
Yeah.
Nothing hard.
Yeah.
Don't arrest her. You're giving them a tap, like just a kind of shock, like literally like that. But to me, I was like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
There's got to be a different way. And she was like, no, no. So she has a reason, whatever. But I can't fathom beating my kids because of that one time when I was 5. I understood before that, but after that time, so for me, I don't think I could. I don't think I could. I don't think I have it in me because I wouldn't want them to be in that position where they're thinking, why has this happened?
Yeah.
And why did this, like, it is an act of violence when you think of it. So why is this happening to me? What have I done to deserve this or whatever? Is there a different way? Because society is telling them now there's a different way.
Yeah.
You know, growing up in a West African household, some of the beatings were savage, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I even think some of the treatment was abusive.
Oh,
It is abusive.
100%.
I'm not even,
This day and age, if that
it's
happened.
abusive. Social services. I'll tell you, man, as a story. I must have done something. I think, and because I grew up also in a very pious household, right? I think one time
In what house, sorry?
in a very pious and religious household, I think my mum must have caught me beating one out. I remember there was something. It was of a sexual nature.
Oh, we said to create my name for the show, bro.
Listen, I'm keeping it 100. I don't care. I'm a big man now. Everything's cool. But I must have been like 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
I must have had some kind of like whole magazine or something. I was touching myself, pleasuring myself, whatever. My mom walks in the room, right? Vexed because I'm supposed to be Sunday schooling, Christian boy, whatever. And I remember very vividly, this woman went into the kitchen, went into the fridge. I said, what's this woman going to do now? She took out a piece of ginger. She shoved it up my ass. Do you know how painful?
Yeah.
Do you know how painful that is?
What? It was open and everything.
Yeah, it is brutally painful. Now,
Yeah.
instead of understanding, okay, my boy is 11, 12 years old. He might
That's
be
what I'm
going
going to
through
ask.
puberty.
Was your dad around then?
Can't remember if dad was, because I've known my dad's been around most of my life, but
Yeah.
there was some various long periods of times where my dad would disappear for a couple of years,
Yeah.
3, 4 years, and
Yeah.
come back. It's very common. Africans do that all the time.
Yeah.
Dad will go and live in another country,
Yeah.
and mums will basically raise the kids, and he will come back, and then we'll be off again.
Yeah.
So they can't be off to go out no more, and then he, But I've known my dad all my life,
Okay.
basically. But there's been, large periods of absences, and I don't know if he was about. But ultimately, now that I'm an adult, I can realize, okay, young Mike was looking at the nyash, was thinking, okay, I want to beat this thing, but I can't beat, so I'm going through puberty,
normal
and I'm exploring like,
Yeah.
I want to beat. Do you know,
Yeah.
I was like, instead of sitting me down and realize, oh my god, my son is getting a
conversation.
you are chastising me with a freaking piece of ginger, bruv. I don't recommend it. Please don't do this at home. It fucking hurts. Yeah. And so that was on top of beatings I used to get. And sometimes the beatings was born out of frustration for their own personal issues. Nothing to do with me, But I think discipline is important. I really do. I think an element of fear and respect for your parents is important. How you instill it, it's entirely up to you. But I think parents need to respect their parents. And so, to be honest with you, just like when we were in school and we knew that this is the biggest brother, he's a big guy, he's difficult to fight. You don't want no trouble with him. You respected him because you feared him to some extent because he was that guy.
Yeah.
Same thing. You want your parents to be like, do you know what? I ain't going to do this. I ain't going to steal something. Or I ain't going to smoke that weed. Or I ain't going to sleep with that boy because my dad will kill me if I come back pregnant.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to show the fear of God in them things there. Say, yo, that we can go there if we have to.
I feel that's been lost in society now. I feel everyone's trying to be their kids' brethren and stuff like that. Let me do this with my, not it's trying to make it too friendly, as in like, Mike, yeah, I'm your dad. Yeah, Mike, let's go out, let's do this, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
There's got to be some respect, some boundaries, I think. And I think that's just been lost.
Do you think,
Oh, God.
do you think though that, I think a lot of my experience, I guess, was I grew up in a single mother home.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just like uncles and family around. And I think a lot of my experience, I think, was born from the fact that there wasn't like that
Father figure.
father figure there, if that makes sense. And I think that kind of also changes the dynamics. I think you can have two extremes.
Mhm.
You have one extreme where, 'cause, I think fundamentally, you need both parents, but at minimum, like dads tend to be a lot more rigid and a lot more discipline focused.
Yeah.
And I think there can be an overcompensation or an undercompensation.
Yeah.
I don't like tend to see many occurrences where the dad is there, where they're not pulling kids up and not. But I feel like when it's just maybe just a woman, I feel like there's more propensity to either like anything you do, you're getting a slap, an uppercut, a punch, or a kick, or Timmy, don't do that. Timmy, don't do that. Don't do
There's
that.
never that balance.
Yeah, there's not a balance in the middle, if that makes sense.
Mm.
I think one of the things, so you talked about putting the fear into the kids. So me and my mum currently, so I say currently at the time of recording, we're not talking.
Mm.
And one of the biggest struggles we have in our mother and son relationship is that I don't fear her.
Mhm.
And the reason that I don't is because the actions in my mind were senseless.
Mm.
So therefore, I don't fear it. I write it off as this is just fucking stupid and I'm not even going to pay attention to it. So actually, it's had the adverse effect
Yes.
because one of the things she says to
Very
me in my adult life now is actually one of the last conversations we had. She said, I'm taking the reins and I'm this and that, and you're going to stop doing things your way. I'm a 38-year-old man
Mm.
with a house and 2 kids.
Mm.
She thinks that fear bit should be there. And because it's not there, she struggles with it. So me, from where I've had that relationship with her,
Yeah.
I think boundaries is correct.
Mhm.
Yeah. Respect definitely should be there. But the fear thing, I don't think is conducive. I don't think that's, I guess, just because of my situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
I think, sorry to cut you. I think so I believe in fear, but I don't know if I believe in the fear of violence, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
I think kids don't generally understand how society works, but we all understand fear because that's what is an inherent thing for us to keep ourselves safe. We assess things. Is there risk? Is there danger? I fear that. I'm not going to do that. So I think parents have to create an environment where kids experience fear and know that there is fear and consequence
That's
if
the
I
word.
make these decisions.
So
Yeah.
your thing about consequence, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I do, and this is what I do with my boys, and I also do this with anyone that I like hire and recruit, is you repair the consequences of your own actions.
Mhm.
You take accountability of it. So if you do a fuck up, whether that's my son or whether that's someone that works with me,
Yeah.
you go and fix it. I'll tell you the tools to fix it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You go and fucking fix it. You make that phone call. You go and do whatever. So that bit then is, for me, that is a lesson. But the fear thing, like what worries me, Rima always says this about the boys. So she says that my eldest actually does fear me. And I don't like that at all, if I'm honest. She probably won't believe that I listen to this, but I don't like that.
Yeah.
What I want is, when you think about how things are and you think about what these kids do, suicides, stuff like this, bullying and all that, I want my son to be able to talk to me. I want him to be able to tell me, do you know what? I did this
Yeah.
and I don't know what to do. Because if
Yeah.
he's fearful, he'll go and find a solution that, so you come back to your point about the environment and stuff. They don't have a fucking clue what to do.
But let's define it, because I'm not requiring my children to fear me to the point where they cower. It's like my dog, for instance. My dog knows that when I say, "Yo, Zion," he's like, "Oh
Yeah.
shit, I'm in trouble."
I'm in trouble.
Same thing with my kids. Like, "Yo, Yaya, don't do this," and she was like, "Okay, Dad is upset." But at the same time, they can come and cuddle me, and they will know that I give them all the love that they actually need. The point I'm trying to make here is that there has to be an element where if I make this bad move, the consequences I'm about to face or the reaction that my father's going to have is going to be quite detrimental. I do not want to do this out of respect and also out of great concern for myself. I'm not going to embark into that particular route or do that particular action because it could lead to consequences that I'm not even aware of. Now, to me, I do believe that there's an element of respect in fear, because sometimes with fear, you don't know what the consequence is going to be,
Yeah.
but you know that there will be repercussions of sort. And that in itself is enough to keep your kids in check. Now, I would much rather not have to use any form of force to enforce a message to my children. I would much rather not do that, because as much as we all say we turn out all right, some of us turn out quite damaged.
Yeah.
To the point that when I embarked into parenthood, there were times where I was using, the belts or threatening of, and I was like, nah, this is mad. Because some of these practices were probably colonial practices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my impression of it.
They've been passed down.
Into my kids. But, I'm sorry, I ain't gonna do that.
I can really, and this, so for me, I'm a parent to two little boys, on both under the age of 5, and it has been a real learning curve. I feel like I've had to really rewire my brain when it comes to dishing licks or giving discipline, because it was based on what's happened to my mum and dad, was what was given to them by their parents and so forth.
Yeah.
And so forth. And as a result, it goes back to what you're both saying, is where boundaries were crossed, and then you've got broken pickney that are traumatized. So especially with my eldest, I'm not gonna lie, like, he's a cheeky little chappy, but and listen, if you ever see this, daddy loves you, and I get it now when they say it hurts you, it hurts me more than it hurts you. But a couple of times, man gave the eldest a little, and then it get to the point where one day he cowered, and I said, yeah, that was the point where I was just like, yeah, daddy can't be the disciplinary to be dishing out licks, because that's how you then become the bad guy.
Yeah.
The irony is I'm wearing a t-shirt that says the bad guy, but I think also as well, if I look at how both my mum and dad dealt with me when it came to discipline, like yourself, Doc, I was in a single parent family. My dad was around, but they both gave different discipline in different ways. So with mum was, mummy, I love you if you're watching this, but hey, some of them licks that from it was things where things were getting drawn for,
whatever was around.
Yeah. Whereas my dad installed fear.
There's more fear in it.
Yeah, so he would say things like, wait till Arla Una get home, it's me and you.
Yeah.
And you really knew it was me and him. Because I remember one time, and my brothers would know this, we played up at our house party, and he dropped that lime. So when we've got home and got into bed, he ain't come. So freaking cool. Next thing I just said, you see the belt just roll up. Yeah. It was licks time. You see what I'm saying? But what me and my kids' mum have tried to do now is move away from licks. Because don't get me wrong, I think every now and then you might have to give the odd one. Not where it's excessive, but we try to do the whole punishment route. Like, we'll say to him, no more Mr. Tumble, or you can't watch Andy and the Band. And you have to, But it's funny because what I'm also finding as well, especially with my eldest, is that he'll say sorry and still go and do it. And it just makes you think that you just think, sorry is just going to get you off the hook, and that's it. So I think I'm at that point where I'm just like, how do I get him to realize, so if you're saying sorry, you have to mean it. You can't be having the repetitive behavior where me or your mum is having to discipline you a certain way. You know what I'm saying? And I think it also goes back to what you're also saying as well, Terry, in the sense of, if we dish out a certain bit of discipline, the schools and nurseries are on it. Like, let's say something really politically, they're really on it now, where it's a case where one little mark on your pickney, and they might be thinking, well, what's going on there? We need to keep an eye on it. So I think that's another reason why you can't always go down that violent route. But I think it was weird when I was dishing out the licks. It's like, shit, I'm like my mum or my dad all over again. This is not that's not the parent that I want to be, and this is not the way I have to parent. So this is why I'm saying it's a constant learning curve.
Yeah,
I'll be the first to admit there have been times where I've not handled the situation right with my eldest, and I've said, you know what, Daddy, sorry. You think my mother or father would ever say sorry for me? You know what I'm saying?
Do you think, obviously, getting licks, we've all established we've all got licks.
Yeah.
Do you think it helped you as an adult, as in, like?
I think for me, I think we've all of us in this room can say there might be maybe 1 or 2 occasions where the licks are still remnant. They've left emotional scars.
100%.
That's the damage, or that's the problem of when you're dishing out licks. You're not realizing not only are you causing physical harm, you're causing some emotional harm and damage that can go on for years.
And I think if, sorry to cut you quickly, but I think also if the generation above us, like mums and dads, actually thought themselves and took some time to process, I think they would also look at their upbringing and say exactly the same thing. Actually, there's a lot of emotional damage that I didn't process. I just took from here and went straight to there with.
You know, it's funny you say that, because if I look at some of the things that maybe my mum and dad were going through individually or collectively, then it's a lot, and it made me understand why maybe certain licks were a bit maybe one too many.
Yeah.
That was unfortunately their outlet.
Yeah.
And now, I've caught myself, I'm thinking, you know what, this is not actually about my son playing up. This is about something I'm
Work,
projecting here. And I think that's something that we all need to sort of realize. It's not clear cut. You know what I mean?
It's interesting because what about the lack of licks? Because sometimes you can overcompensate for things because it could go two ways.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times he starts with the relationship. So let's just say you got classic case. Mom meets dad, has child, dad goes. Or there's some issue between mom and dad goes. As a boy, especially when you're a boy, certain my experience as a boy, I got more licks than my sisters did. Because I felt that I was a boy and I was probably looking at my dad the most. So whenever I did anything wrong, my mom would just take it all out. Where is he? Where is he?
Yeah.
To get licks for no damn reason. To the point where I didn't like my mom growing up. I like my mom, and it caused issues with me growing up as well. As just like Kilo said, Mom, if you're watching this, I'm telling you the truth. Like I never always liked you. So the thing is, now the flip side is, what if my mom's did not lick me and overcompensated for me and allowed me to be as degenerate as possible without challenging me? Isn't what is a consequence of an overcompensating?
Yes.
Do you know what I think it is? Is I think just in our makeup, striking someone is a very easy thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So if somebody upsets you, your emotional reaction, you can process it, you can strike. And I just feel that process doesn't really engage the active thought of, actually, is this the best means or method?
Yeah.
It's kind of a reaction rather than, being proactive. And I think, and this is why I agree with you, I think there can be two extremes. But I think, and I also do think equally that it is very, like, parenting is one of the hardest things you can do in the world, 200%. Yeah. But
Terry's like,
but what I've recognized is it's harder to parent the way where you don't smack your child.
Yes.
Because, for example, you'll be out and about, yeah? And this is when because kids know these things. You're out and about, you're on road, and the child says, right, now I'm going to test this motherfucking boundary. I'm going to kick off, and then all of a sudden you've got a screaming child, and people, we naturally do it. You're walking past, this child screaming, like, what is this parent doing? You not got your kid in order. So now you're feeling the weight of the pressure around you of, like, how am I not controlling my kid? And it takes a lot of mental fortitude in that place to not have a reaction with all the pressure, to give him a smack or give him a pinch and I think, so therefore, it can also be almost seen as being a bit easier to just smack, because they get a pain reaction and they say, okay, let me behave, But I think when you kind of go in for the longer game, so you do things like, for example, like what I've done before with my kids is, if they've crossed the boundary, some people would perceive it as very harsh. I'll give them one clear warning. We're going out. If you do this, we're going home. Yeah. Now, kids will think, it's not going to happen. We've gone out. They've crossed that line. We've gone home. Even the missus at that point in time was like, don't you think that's harsh? And I've been cleared. No, I'm not going to smack my kids, but I'm going to be very firm. They're going to know that my word is my absolute bond. If I say it, it's going to happen. Yeah. And I think when you excite that, it's harder, because I wanted to go out, bro. I wanted to get some food, and so I have to upset the whole family, even, the partner. So it takes a lot. You could have just smacked them and carried on your day. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So I think there has to be an acceptance of it. We have to think honestly about, well, wait a minute, am I taking the easy road or the tougher road in discipline?
You're right. Sometimes you got to make that stand, and it's figuring out what is the best stand to take. Because just going back to what you're saying, French, about if you don't lick your picnic, you think my picnic could ever, any of my picnic could tell and go, you daddy, you must him, and live where? As my mum would say, if uno can't hear, uno must feel. You know what I'm saying? But then in the same token, like,
but do you think? Sorry to cut you.
Yeah,
it's just really to ask you, since you got the mic. Do you think that children essentially want to know where the boundary is?
Yes.
Yeah, why they just like, let me see what I can do. Let me see how far I can stretch myself. So do they then deserve a lick then?
Yeah, you see what the problem is back in the day, and with our parent generation, children were not seen and not heard. It's a whole different thing where the children now are seen and heard. But by doing that, you have to enforce that boundary. I will listen to you, I will see you and hear you, but you need to
you know, there are certain parameters that
Yeah.
we're gonna work with in order for me to see and hear you. Like I said to you, there have been times I've apologized to my oldest because I've done a rash thing and said, well, I see what he was trying to do there, but because of maybe
Just trying to express
yeah,
yourself.
you know what I'm saying?
And perhaps that could be the antidote to that cowering thing that we were discussing earlier. Because I don't know about you guys, but Ghanaian parents never apologize.
Oh,
Even when-
never.
Yeah,
Never.
even when they are wrong,
Stone
Visibly
cold
wrong.
face. I've been getting beaten for things where the evidence clearly came out that I wasn't in the vicinity. I said it, but it's still my fault. Somehow, never. There's been never one word of, do you know what? I'm sorry.
Have you ever had this conversation as an adult? I said, "Your mom, do you know when I was young? You don't think you were a bit hard on me?"
I've tried.
And then your mom, and then your mom, they'll never remember.
Yeah, the memory gone. Memory gone. I don't remember that.
I'm like, yo, you put ginger up my ass. She telling me you don't remember that shit?
Your batty must have been
Yeah,
burning.
bro.
Burning.
It was horrible. And she claims to not have remembered this. So what? Am I making stuff up then?
Yeah.
Nah, you know, it's just they don't want to be a reminder of
think
the
it's
former.
just-
Yeah.
What I've recognized with my mum, forgive if she's watching this, but similar to your situation, I've had a very turbulent relationship with one parent I had, which is my mum.
Mm.
She was like everything. She was the disciplinarian. She had to work. She had to provide. So it was like I said, I think we were saying before the cameras were rolling. Like I also had all my uncles and aunts around. So when my mum couldn't, beat me, she'd tag other people in. So my uncle would give me a slap. I couldn't escape my beating. Yeah, and I can now, growing up, I've looked and I can reflect and I can say, like exactly what you were saying, that was an extremely turbulent period for my mum. She was younger. So in my heart, there's forgiveness, there's understanding there. But I've noticed when I've tried to broach these conversations or even have them, it's almost like I can see in her, because I've grown up now, that there is an active, I'm chucking that to the back of my mind. Now I'm a new person. That old me, I'm not going back there. So there's no acceptance of it. There's no closure. So I've kind of accepted that that's a place that I just have to let evaporate into dust and let go of.
Well, I think we need to reopen that conversation because it's a wound that's closed. Yeah, that's not really like we're now trying to navigate our own parenting, our own children. Yeah. And there were times where because I didn't particularly like the way I was raised at some time, I genuinely tried to put the brakes on the beating thing. My wife won't even beat our children. She was raised in Jamaica hardcore. And the licks that she got was so brutal. Yeah. She was like, I ain't going to do that.
Again, that's that slavery
my
thing.
Kids. Yeah, it must have been.
It is.
He must have got it's horrible. It's horrible. You know what I'm saying? So, and even me, because I got girl child, if I had sons, perhaps I would have been a bit even more tougher. Yeah. Not because I know the word out there, because we've been talking, we've had lots of episodes where we talk about how difficult it is to be a black man.
Yeah.
And this
man and then black
and a black actor, you got to make us strong. You got to chisel them in a way that they got to be thick-skinned. So I will be a bit more harder on them. Yeah. But at the same time, I will tell them why.
Yeah, exactly.
Why I'm doing it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But with my daughters, it's slightly different. But even them, I toughen them up in such a way to make them understand that, look, you're going to have your own challenges in life. But let me discipline you so that you don't become a wayward child. So you can look back and say, do you know what? That's cool. Because I've met adults, right, who said to me, I wish my parents were harder on me.
Yeah.
And they grow up, they don't particularly fulfill their potential, and they start blaming their parents for not being hard on them. Something like
because they don't know what they're talking about. But you know what? To come back, when you were saying about having the conversation with our parents about the sort of impact and stuff, I tried that conversation. So me and my mom's relationship is poor, to say the least. Some extreme things have happened, some extreme things have happened. But when I tried to ask her, I was like, what was it in aid of? What benefit did it do, or what did it do to make me better? Because actually, I don't know about you guys, but I still didn't go down the right path anyway. So I got the licks that was supposed to keep me in check, keep me disciplined. Probably still did all the things she didn't want me to do anyway.
Exact same.
A very good point.
I don't really know what it was about. And that's why I will always come back to what is the different way of doing it, because I took the licks and all I do is resent that.
Yeah.
because I didn't understand why.
You know what?
And then in terms of going forward, it didn't do nothing.
Change
I think black youths are the most disciplined youths.
Yeah.
In terms of like,
Sure.
But
the licks for days,
And
but
you-
still the gulliest.
the only thing that comes out of it is I can take a hit to the jaw, bro.
Yeah.
No, but you know what's mad? And like again, like you two, like my relationship with mum is we've come a long way. And I think that changed when I became a dad for the first time. So now I was not just your child, I'm your child as a parent as well. So there's a next level of respect.
Mhm.
But I feel sometimes, I don't know about you lot, but I see with my parents, the love that they're giving my kids,
Hey,
me never get them.
get that. I said that.
Well, it's different.
You weren't like
You weren't
that.
like that.
It's so true.
So I
But
feel
it's that memory blank that they have.
well,
though.
this is it. So
It's that,
therefore,
'cause that instinct's not there. They-
no. What I say to that,
You said in one of the earlier episodes about this doctor thing you were going on about.
Oh, the amygdala.
The amygdala.
Oh, the,
Yeah.
emotional, yeah.
Yeah.
Negative emotions.
so this is the thing. So
Yeah.
clearly they do still remember, but they'd rather than replay it, they're
Yeah.
like, you know what, I can change the outcome, and I
Yeah.
can change the outcome with my grandchildren.
That's exactly what they do.
Exactly. That's what I think is a big part of
Yeah.
it. Yeah. That's what I recognize, like I said, in my situation, is that there's like even talking, I realized there's a complete closure. Like
Mm.
I openly show that, hey, this is a painful situation for me. It's something that would be nice to not just be making assumptions on, to get your perspective. Complete, like that's past. I'm new.
But then, is that a reflection that closure is overrated? Because I was very much a person that constantly used to look for closure until certain situations happen, and I was just like, you know what? With closure, you're sometimes leaving the door open when you're looking for closure. It's like you're kind of like, I'm giving you a chance to tag back in. Come on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I didn't know. It's a tough one. I think a lot of, like I said, I agree with what he was saying. A lot of my life, like to begin with, was way off the tracks. Like I look back at my upbringing, and I felt like I fitted statistics when I left school. Like I was unemployed, I got kicked out of the house early. Like it was way off. And I look at my upbringing, the beating, and I think that didn't get me there. It's me really hitting the streets and kind of realizing, rotted, this is what the world actually is. That kind of made me say, right, I got to sort myself out.
Our parents don't know what the world was.
Yeah,
They
I
don't
think that's
know what it
is,
was
yeah.
in like the 2000s and that.
Yeah.
Because whatever they experience, not the same.
We had a different experience, yeah.
It is,
but you got downplayed.
But here's the thing: if you don't discipline your pickney, someone else would definitely.
Exactly.
And usually that's the road.
Streets, yeah.
It's that discipline your pickney, and then it's kind of like, oh, you're there second, you're guessing yourself. Could I have done this better? Maybe I should have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing, so what we've tried really hard to create at home is that family vibe. So we actively go out of our way to make sure that every weekend we do something with the boys.
Yeah.
That's good.
Something like in a park or something
Yeah.
where it's like, So my son, I very rarely hear him say, oh, can this person come or can I go here or whatever. He's like, what are we going to do this weekend? He actively wants to know what is mommy and dad. And if we don't, he's like, oh, so we're not doing anything this weekend.
Yeah.
We're like, no, we're just going to stay at home or whatever. But he's chill.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you create that for me, I think when you think about when we hit road or whatever we did that wasn't good, it's because I don't know about you guys, but I had no sense of belonging.
None.
I didn't feel like being in my house. I was either
was safe
or was it safe or wanted.
Yeah.
Because if I did something or I expressed myself, if it wasn't to what the actual structure of the house was, you was a piece of shit.
And on top of that as well, being a black youth as well, it compounds. There's a lot of stuff you have to go through.
Yeah.
You make a valid
we're
point.
all on the street together because you don't see the white kids there.
Yeah.
No, but you just
No. Yeah, it depends. If you're working class, there'll always be a white brother hanging around.
Yeah.
If you think about the main group of people that, like, if I think about the sort of stupidity that I got into, there wasn't many white people involved.
You know what? You touched upon something about the belonging, not feeling, but it's not even just the belonging, not at home, that you're feeling the lack of belonging. For me, I was always too black for the white and Asian youths, but they're too white for the black youths.
Too white,
And I'm like, bro, where do I fit in? Yeah.
I still get that shit now.
No, but I get that.
That's what I was saying to Mike earlier.
Like,
French are okay with me, but the white people still don't know.
It's my car. all of us are in working professions, but I guarantee you, some of our spars probably look at us and think, "Oh, you think you're a bit better than me."
Yeah,
Or,
100%.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
Yeah.
A lot of them do, even amongst your own family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, listen, I'm
You know
literally beefing with half my family.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
The
And it makes no sense.
that I think is for another topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But 100%. Right. I've got one cousin. There's two of us. We're both boys, cousins.
Mm.
One is celebrated. I'm never spoken of.
Do you know what? Yeah, you touched on
Never.
a beautiful point, and I think this is something that I realized in certain circles is I don't know, the people that get kind of pushed to the side and always manage to land on their feet
Mm-hmm.
tend to just be forgotten about.
Yeah.
So it's like almost like a silent compliment.
They're
But the
okay.
people that constantly trip up and back up
Yeah.
home, go to getting on the wrong side of the law for some reason, like the basic things they may achieve is like, look, great. He's not been in prison for a year. Look how
Because-
great he is.
What I find, and I don't know, maybe now I'm going to take out the whole family, but I don't mean to. There are people in my family that I do have a lot of time for and have made a lot of time for me. Like one of my aunts, honestly, always made the time. But generally, as a family, it's almost like we don't want to celebrate success.
Yeah.
Like one of my cousins, she got into jewelry, makes her own jewelry and stuff. She's done so well. No one says a thing, bro. Why? Because she made it herself. But when it's like, oh, we helped this person, or we did this for this person, then it's a big thing. Then it's known.
What I'll say, and I don't know how it. I mean, I'm talking from a Western African household. There's a propensity for the parents to think they own your life.
Bro, that is exactly what my mom said, bro.
I think it's an African
You're
thing.
still my son.
They think they own your life.
Yeah.
They can tell
Yeah.
you what to do, where to go,
That
who to marry. And I was
Bro.
like, you must.
I had that shit marrying my
I'm
wife.
doing my own thing.
Serious.
Had that shit marrying my wife.
Yeah. Listen, like same thing. When I met my missus, and introduced my missus from yard, you know what West Africans are like? Yay, Jamaica.
Yeah, with this jabber.
Yeah.
Yeah, with this jabber. Man, with this jabber.
Yeah.
Blood clot.
I said, yeah, mum, she's from yard. Yard, them call it.
Yard.
Jamaica, they call it yard.
Yeah.
Yard.
God.
You know, so, and when she met her, she fell in love with her. She realized this thing is actually stupendous. I must say, I chose very well because I can't talk for the rest of my siblings
Mhm.
who all decided to keep it Ghanaian or whatever,
Mhm.
and some of it went terrible for them.
Yeah,
God bless them.
Mhm.
But one thing is, at the end of the day, like, look, we live in the UK. There's the length and breadth of this country is beautiful, filled with beautiful people. Just choose somebody for you. No disrespect, by the way. But the point I'm trying to make is that my mum underestimated my intellect and my choice of things that I could do because she just thought this boy's an idiot. Because at the end of the day, that's what it was. I swear to you.
No.
I promise you. She didn't
No.
realize I was capable
Yeah.
and actually more smarter and more wiser than she could ever be.
Then her.
I'm sorry, mum, if you're watching this,
There's-
but I am working than you.
There's two things.
Exactly.
There's two things at play there, yeah. One, because I had this shit, and this is why. So I'll put it out there. Mom took me to court about saying that my wife was going to take my son to another country because she's from India. Yeah?
Mm.
That's how raw it got. Literally a court case. I had to go and defend myself in a court case. Yeah, I still got the file.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
But do you know what it comes to? Your point, yeah? Because I didn't bring. Well, it was funny. When she met her, she was very happy with it. Like, oh, yeah, this and this. Because Rima used to like cook for me and stuff. I used to bring it home and things like this because I was still living. I moved back.
Mm.
She was all happy. And then when we decided to do things mixed culture, or we just did things that wasn't even in my culture, that's when the problem started. And then I got it. You know, I read when we had to do the case stuff, reading through the emails. She was like racist towards her. She was like saying that, you know, this woman's using you. She's just using you for a passport, this and that. There's no love. There's no this, no that. Questioning whether she could be a mother, like all this kind of stuff. Questioning me if I could be a father. The day my son was born, she kicked us out. We were living there. She kicked us out the day my son was born
Mm.
because she didn't. It was an emergency C-section. She didn't come into the room, and she was like, "Oh, I've like mistreated her or whatever." And she literally walked out of the hospital 1 o'clock in the morning. I had my car. I had to call my stepdad to get her. Come the next morning, she was like having a go at me. I just walked out, smashed her door. I was ready to go. Then she phones up Rima like, "Oh, this and this." So like these people do that, and it's like no consideration to your point because I didn't do what she wanted me to do. Because I didn't do the life the way she wanted it.
Yeah,
And she
100%.
couldn't do anything to she couldn't do anything to change it.
Because they don't realize that you got your own mind.
Yeah.
You got your own life. Like, and all you were a conduit for me to actually come into this world, but nothing else. I owe you respect at the very least.
Yeah.
And I got to honor you for being my mother.
Yeah.
But that's where it stops. Like, if you want to be, idolized, I'm giving that to God because he's the one that made this whole thing anyway. You're just there. But they take it a bit too far.
It is too far.
They genuinely do. And that is my concern. Because you see, as far as I'm concerned, my greatest achievements are my children.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
They're my kids.
100%. That's exactly how it is.
Yeah,
The legacy. I look at my kids.
Legacy.
My greatest achievement.
Rotted.
Pity them.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yes.
All three of them.
Taught the thing. Taught the thing.
And the thing is, and because I genuinely revere them and want them, I think my level of discipline with them is conducive to what they do wrong.
Yeah.
I don't just beat them because I'm vexed or come today because some guy called me a dickhead and I'm taking it out on my kids. No, I don't do that. I try to be fair with them so that they know when dad says this is not happening, it's not happening. Not because he's brought frustration from somewhere and he's lashing
They have
out.
no
on the kid.
control over it.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so sometimes when I used to get beaten by my mom, by my dad, I was like, were you two in love when you had me? Or something?
Yeah.
Because I'm supposed to be your greatest achievement. I'm supposed to be your you,
Yeah.
the kid that you look up to. And you beat me viciously like I stole your lunch dinner or something. Like some of the beats, bro,
Yeah.
was ridiculous.
But they were dealing with their traumas. And
Yeah, that's-
we were the emotional, the physical. Yeah.
I don't think
Oh.
I don't know about yours now. My parents were quite young when they had me. Obviously, daddy weren't around. But I just don't think they were equipped because life
Probably.
moved quick in those times.
Yeah.
Money was more valuable back
Yes.
then,
Yes.
right? So things move very differently and lifestyle could change so quickly
Yes.
with a kid because it was almost like a hindrance.
Mm,
Like, how many of us have stayed with granny and grandpa
Yeah.
for a prolonged period of time?
mm.
Yeah.
They used to send you.
Or how
Yeah.
exactly how many weekends you spend somewhere? My
Yeah.
kids have never spent a weekend somewhere.
Same.
If they spent a weekend somewhere, it's with me.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Like I've got obviously my mum from my side, my wife's mum from her side. They spend time with the kids. They can stay over like a night or two. It's perfectly fine. Sometimes the nannies come and stay with us.
But it wouldn't be a habitual thing, would it? Like I'm talking about like I
Probably
remember in my
on a
time,
date night
like,
or something.
like
Yeah.
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 And how often do you get to do that? Me and Rima probably had like once a month. I think years back.
But you know what, as well, even with that, these days you don't even know who you can leave your picnic them with.
Yeah.
Well,
There's some wicked people.
we need to address this.
No, seriously, because it's
Listen,
rife. It's let's
amount of molestation
in
and
the
child abuse that take place.
yeah.
Families too.
And you found out about it when you're older that auntie was getting touched by the
Yeah.
And we're rolling around with these people like key and not knowing the
Not
full
knowing.
extent what went down. Yeah, it's
Like,
mad.
don't get me wrong.
Hey.
Don't get me wrong. You're absolutely right, and that's a form of abuse as well. And which is why, like, listen, it came. My kids, my daughters are 11 and 9. After a certain age, I stopped bathing them. I said to my wife,
I hear that.
Yeah.
you crack on,
Yeah.
yeah. From like
that way.
from about 5, 6, I was like, even when they have their bath, I tell them close the door, lock it off, and do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they're babies, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But I want them to know that look,
To know.
you now got your own thing going on.
Yeah.
If you want something clean, call your mother, or call your
It's
call your
funny you
auntie.
say that because me and my kids, man, we co-parent, but we've had to sit down with the elders and say, yo, only somebody that can touch you there is me, your mother,
Mm.
the people that nurse you.
Mm.
Everyone else, you need to come and run and tell us.
Yeah. So at a certain age, they're their own people.
Yeah.
And even when it comes to, it's kind of weird because even sometimes when, because we Afro Caribbean, yeah,
Mhm.
the discipline is a village thing. As
Yeah,
you said, your
yeah.
uncles will step in,
Yeah.
your aunties will actually step in. But some of our aunties and uncles are dysfunctional fuckers.
Yeah.
I don't want them anywhere near.
And the thing is,
Anywhere near my kids.
you get clarity when you're older because when you're younger, like I don't know about you guys, but the bare weird shit went on in my family. And when I got older, like I'm like, that's why so it's not gonna be bad, but that aunt clearly had learning difficulties. Why is she beating me?
Yeah.
Come on, it's hard to say it, but
It's terrible.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like when we talk about disciplining our kids, but when you've got other members of your family that are clearly unstable, they should be nowhere near your kids.
Yeah.
Nowhere near them.
There's more awareness now, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, if you go back in time, like even the kids, like with my eldest, they're made to know when something's wrong now.
Yeah.
Like they're actually taught in the education.
Yeah.
There's very few people who should touch you, and if someone is touching you and they don't want to touch, you don't want them to. So I think that kind of thing now.
But I still think it's a taboo subject when you bring it up with certain family members, as we've established today. Some people, when I say, "Oh, my mind is blank," I don't remember that. I don't remember taking you there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you're like, oh, and that's why the problem will continue, because no one want to take accountability, let alone acknowledge the fuckery that went down.
Yeah.
100%.
So, as you can see, it's a really heated subject, but I think we need to start getting some closing statements and bringing it
Not
together.
closure, closing statement.
Yeah, because we can chat forever on this one. So I'm going to just go around the room. I'm going to start with P.
So I think I've been quite open on this topic, and I think hopefully you understand why I say that. For me, I don't think the beating is the way, and that's purely from a place of I want my kids to understand, take ownership of the things that they do.
Yeah.
The consequence is what they will own, and the repairing of the error is what they will own, and that's how I discipline mine. My son, I've never hit him, but he knows if I look at him, one look, he knows. And even like to the point, I always tell him to sit up. Now I don't tell him. I walk in the room and he sits up. So I don't think you have to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, maybe I need to think about how I can refine it so it doesn't become fear, because I don't want it to be fear. And I think that's part of my journey as a father. My son's autistic, so there is a thing there where there's hypersensitivity too. So, I take that on board for myself, that I have to be better in terms of how I communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Rima does that, and she does that brilliantly. I need to spend more time on that, but I'll never hit them. That I know. My youngest is a fucking savage, an absolute fucking animal. His nickname is the animal. But I actually know that for all the trouble he's about to cause me when he gets to a certain point, I'm not going to hit him.
Yeah.
We'll have the conversation and he'll own up to his mistake. And that's my bit on it.
I think for me, it's going to be a continuous learning curve, even when they're licking the ages of maybe 10, 15, 8. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think also as well, I'm not going to always get it right. But I think one thing I'm getting to try on the train, sometimes you got to give yourself a bit of grace. And
That's big.
that's what I would say on that regard there.
Yeah. I would say, obviously, I have kids, but learning from obviously taking what everyone else has said in, it's letting them know why they've got the lick. If you're going to lick them, it's that explanation, I think, which has gone missing from loads of us when we were youths and we got licked. It's just like, what have I done? Kind of like a dog. Like you say, you can't just beat them. You got to let them know why you've beaten them, kind of thing. And so, kind of do that with kids, kind of thing. So, obviously, if you're going to lick, I think I probably would. To
No,
offset some of the beats I got when I was a kid.
No.
I would obviously give them that explanation and then let them learn from it from next time, innit? Yeah.
No. I mean, look, I think that discipline is required in raising children. I think if it's physical, I think it needs to be applied with as a last resort, with a narrative so that the child can understand where they've gone wrong. But ultimately, I would much rather make the kids write 500 times, "I'll never do this again," and rip in front of their faces, or let them do 20 press ups until it hurts. So I mean, something like that, so that they can answer them. Yeah, at least it's beneficial.
Yeah.
If I'm going to inflict some kind of physical pain, build the muscles in the process.
Improve the handwriting.
Do what I'm saying? Improve the handwriting, stuff like
Join
that.
up.
Because ultimately, what I want our kids to become is critical thinkers.
Yeah.
And if you beat your children without no real understanding, where they don't understand why they're being punished, it doesn't help them. So it's really about making sure they become independent and they get steered in the right direction. But look, if you're going to apply the beating, please do it. But bear in mind that it could have some long-term consequences and you may have to face those awkward conversations. And sometimes it's not worth it.
I think I align quite closely with P in the sense of saying that I've got to think for a second there. I've got 3 boys. That's a lie. I got 4 boys.
4 boys.
Yeah, 4 boys. I think that actually, which you said as well, and I touched on that. I think my youngest now is autistic as well, so that's been a bit of a journey learning how to parent and manage with him. But I think I reflect very deeply on my upbringing and thinking about the impact that being beaten had on me, and getting to the age where I could process everything and it just not making sense. And I always remember this one thing. I remember when I newly qualified as a doctor, and I was talking to another guy, white guy, he's very middle class white guy, who's a doctor, and we were just talking about upbringing, and like I just because I thought it was normal, like still, so I said it casually. I thought maybe he didn't get the proper tick, and he was like, "I've never been beaten," and I said, "Never," and he was like, I said, "Why?" He said, "Because my parents love me," and I thought, wow, you know what? Yeah. That hit different. Yeah. That hit different. And I thought to myself, rotted. And I think for me, I've always felt that beating a child is too close to what I feel like is bled through generations from before. My parents did that to me, and I've heard some of the horror stories of what my mum got, and my uncles and aunts. And I think that when I look at my child, exactly what Mike was saying, I want my kids to be critical thinkers and understand. And I think that's the more complicated way, because I have to sit them down, explain to them, enact a punishment. And I often find that the punishment most people look at and be like, it's harsh, like you just did this and you're locking off their phone for a week, but I go to those ends because I really need them to appreciate consequences. I don't think as kids can't appreciate the world and consequences. And if you don't give them that, they will grow into a world thinking that's what's out there for them. So I think for me, equally touching on what you said, I think it's important that I can keep that open road with my boys and talk to them and be able to have a conversation about what's going on in the world. So you showed me something new that I didn't really think about, which is the fear element. I quite strongly believed in fear, because I felt like you have to fear something as a child in order to, understand the world before you understand the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I just can't bring myself to beat my children. I think it's always going to be playing that long game. And we've got technology that's so good nowadays. Like I just open my phone, I click an app and their phones are all off. Their switches are all off. All the devices are off. That's far worse punishment. Far worse in the digital age.
Give me that app, man.
Yeah, I'll show you, man. It's the thing. Yeah. So don't forget to hit us up on the socials. So look us up at SBAS Show on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Like, subscribe, all of that beautiful stuff, and look out for more exciting content coming soon.
Peace. Manners and guidance.
Smashed it, bro. Smashed it.
Yeah. P, well done, man, because I know you touched on some crazy shit, right?
Yeah, bro.